In our previous videos, we explored how current systems are struggling to manage the huge amount of information that technology has created. We looked at concept mapping software, which helps organize information, but found that it was limited when approaching today's complex data. This video will discuss how generative artificial intelligence might help us handle this complexity effectively, if we design it to do that. There are two main challenges we face when trying to organize information in a connected way: assembling the information and seeing patterns in it. We have the tools to address these challenges, but they're tough to use at scale, making them impractical for many. Gathering information from diverse sources is hard for even the best researchers. Automating the collection of information, making sense out of its connections, would save immense amounts of time. Even with the best software today, this process is laborious, and we often miss unexpected nodes of information that may seem tangentially related but wind up being central to an ultimate solution. As we mentioned in the last video, there are limits to our ability to understand complex multi-layered connections. We need quick, smart ways to sort through these complex maps, making them easy to understand and constantly responsive to new information. To solve these challenges, we need mindful AI design. I call this generative augmented perspective. This tool would create dynamic, user-friendly maps showing how information is connected. Current generative AI tools already gather information, but often do so in an opaque way. Gap tools would make that process transparent, and couple that with an ability to visualize information in novel ways. We saw in the last video that layered concept maps can show information differently, but are hard to make and connect. AI could automate this, showing connections between different maps of ideas. Going further, however, a generative augmented perspective tool could enhance this layered approach by making three-dimensional connection clouds, allowing us to view problems from all angles. We could see new patterns by examining clusters of connections from different perspectives. Another way to visualize information is through dynamic, colorful heat maps. Right now, making these maps is a manual, time-consuming process. A gap tool could automate this kind of seeing as well. Using generated augmented perspective to construct maps for sense-making would change how we tell stories to explain the world around us. We wouldn't just tell stories in a straight line. We'd see how stories connect with others, helping us tackle difficult problems in new ways. Here are three possible use case scenarios. We could use generated augmented perspective tools for transparency in business regulation and understanding complex processes. We could also use it to understand how generative AI platforms themselves make connections. Understanding how generative AI makes its connections would avoid some of the perceived harms that the technology might cause. In education, there's debate over which stories to focus on. Instead of linear textbooks, we could use maps to show different narratives and let students explore. Generative augmented perspective would be a powerful tool to teach critical inquiry and understanding complexity in the world. Preparing our students for an AI-driven world would require both of these skills. Generative augmented perspective will also help us understand complex issues like climate change, showing where we can have the most impact. The tools would also demystify complex systems and create simpler narrative frameworks to drive effective political action. A generative augmented perspective tool could transform how we view and understand the world's stories. It would help us manage and make sense of complex information. As Vannevar Bush noted almost 80 years ago, in a world full of information, having a clear view of complex challenges and systems will be critical for our survival. Technology can democratize that if we design it to do so. Finding our way out of the complex challenges we face today may depend on that happening.